my honor to introduce to you our next Congresswoman, Dr. Bernadine Banks.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Michelle. And thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm Dr. Bernadine Bank, and I'm running for Congress. Look, to be honest with you, running for public office has never been on my wish list. But as you know, we live in extraordinary times. We are at a crossroads in America where a small, loud, and ill-informed group of radicals are attacking the fundamental rights of women, autonomy over our own bodies, and even our very lives. While these are extraordinary times, I was born and raised in a very ordinary, large, working-class Catholic family in Joliet, Illinois, where I was the youngest of 10 children. Believe me, I wore my share of hand-me-downs, and I always preferred the ones from my sisters over the ones from my brothers. I come from solid Midwestern blue-collar stock. My father's family immigrated from Hungary, and my mother's family was Irish. Dad raised 10 kids on a machinist's salary. And the only way that was possible was that he was in the union. Yes. Yeah? He taught my siblings and me the importance of family and hard work. He also lived to be 102 years old, and he set the example for me to treasure life and good health. My mother, in my mind, was a saint. First off, any woman who raises 10 kids deserves to be canonized, right? Like Dad, Mom was family first, but she was not the kind of person you might expect. She didn't make a career out of raising children and then retire. My mother returned to college at 45 years old. Wow. She added a teaching certificate to her fine arts degree and had a second career teaching in a junior high school. She had a kind of superhuman ability to focus. Can you imagine going back to college with 10 kids underfoot? So seeing her return to college was such a huge influence on me as a young girl. Another thing my mother did that impressed me at the time, but has impressed me even more as I've gotten older, is she decided she was going to lose weight. Now, anyone who has tried to lose weight in middle age knows that it is extremely difficult to actually do that. Well, she didn't just switch to diet drinks and skip desserts. She took up yoga and joined Weight Watchers in 1968. She lost 40 pounds and kept it off the rest of her life. My mother was a union teacher in the public school system. My folks had me in public school until high school. The importance of good public schools was another lesson from my working class Joliet upbringing. But Dad decided that, like my siblings before me, I should go to a Catholic high school. So I donned the plaid skirt uniforms and spent my next 3 years at St. Francis Academy, until I went as a Rotary exchange student to Australia. Now, you might think that sounds like a great experience, and you'd be right. It was awesome. It was so awesome, in fact, that I went back. I had been accepted to the University of Illinois, and I needed money to pay for it. I was offered an opportunity in the Outback and decided to give it a try, even though I had no experience for the job. Now, I don't want to offend anybody, but the job was hunting foxes. They had been introduced from England and were an invasive species that was destroying livestock and native species. So the government paid to keep the population under control. And that, my friends, is how I paid for my first year of college. It got less exciting from there. I got a degree in chemistry from the University of Illinois and then went on to medical school at Northwestern University Medical School. I did my residency at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas, and if that sounds familiar to you, it's probably because that's where they took John F. Kennedy when he was shot. I got married, went into private practice, had 2 children, and we did pretty well for ourselves. But after 19 years in Dallas, it was time for a major change. We had visited Spokane a couple of times, and the place really spoke to us, so we decided to move up here. I took some time off work to focus on raising my children and became a kind of soccer mom for a while. Then it was time for me to return to practice. So I began to work again starting in 2009 at the Community Health Association of Spokane, also known as CHAS, as their gynecologist. CHAS provides health care regardless of ability to pay for over 100,000 patients in our community. So they are the safety net for about 20% of this community. To this day, I'm proud to say I work at CHAS. Then in 2016, in addition to working at CHAS, I decided to take on the challenge of establishing the first gynecology department at the Spokane Veterans Hospital. Helping out veterans and women in need was incredibly rewarding to me, and my life was going pretty smoothly. Then I got divorced, and that was no fun. That was no fun at all after 28 years of marriage. There were greater challenges, though, happening in the world at this time. These changes were affecting my patients, my friends, and my colleagues across the country. My best friend from medical school had become a psychiatrist and was providing expert testimony against Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein. During medical school, we had done some volunteer work in Papua New Guinea and West Africa, so we knew each other pretty well. Now she was telling me just how prevalent these kinds of sexual predators were. Simultaneously, I was learning firsthand about huge numbers of women's veterans who had been raped and abused in the military. My patients. Women I knew, treated and cared for. They even have a special term for it, military sexual trauma. Of course, I'm an obstetrician gynecologist. I was well aware of the abuses many women were subject to, but the scope and scale of it began to present itself more intensely to me through my friends and through my patients. These amazing, brave women who had served our country, most of them with tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kosovo, the Horn of Africa, and other places, had been abused, and many of them, if not most, at the hands of their superior NCOs and officers. And then the Trump administration, with the help of our own congresswomen, forced the Cerner electronic medical records system upon the Spokane VA as the beta test site for the entire country. Nobody wanted this system. Mind you, Fairchild Air Force Base had been the Cerner beta test site for the military in 2017, and they hated it, gave it terrible reviews, and told the government to get rid of it. Most of us in medicine know you never want to be the beta test site for a computer program. At the Spokane VA, the system would crash almost daily. Even when the system wasn't down, it didn't work. We couldn't fill prescriptions for veterans within the system, and I often had to hand deliver a written prescription 6 floors down on the stairs, by the way, because the elevators don't work very well there, to the pharmacy. Referrals would get lost in the ether. Appointment scheduling was faulty, and the billing piece was completely wrong, with patients getting overcharged. Prescriptions were a disaster, especially the automatic refill feature. Talk about inefficiency. This fiasco only got worse. New administrators swore everything was okay, and our congresswoman was nowhere to be found. Then again, this wasn't her first time asleep at the switch at the Spokane VA. The VA hospital emergency room was closed down on her watch, too, 10 years ago. You don't get to brag about trying to reopen the emergency room that closed down when you were already a tenured member of Congress. Almost 9% of the population of this district are veterans, and they deserve the very best of care. It was the care they were promised for serving our country, and it's the care they deserve because they've earned it. Yeah. After 20 years in Congress representing this district, not having an ER or a functioning computer system are failures that rest square on the shoulders of our Congresswoman, because that's been her job for 20 years, and she hasn't done it. But it gets worse. Our Congresswoman voted against the Violence Against Women Act. Who is in favor of violence against women? Yeah. Look, I'm a doctor, a gynecologist, an obstetrician. Women's lives and women's health have been my entire life work. I've delivered over 3,000 babies in my career. And I'll tell you something else. In my 35 years as a physician, I have never performed an elective abortion. I have to tell you a difficult story here. Back in Texas, I got pregnant and everything was going along just fine until at 12 weeks, my baby's heart stopped beating. This was due to a severe chromosomal abnormality called a molar pregnancy. I was devastated. I had to have a dilation and curettage, commonly known as a DNC. If this had happened to me after the Dobbs decision, my doctor would have had to prove to the courts that I needed a procedure, delaying the intervention and extending my emotional trauma. Today, both my doctor and I would be required to clear this procedure with the Texas State Attorney General, and we could both be prosecuted under the new Texas laws. Now, the good news is that a couple of brave women in the Texas legislature that know where babies come from corrected this law so that women don't have to die if their water breaks too early, or from ectopic pregnancies, or from stopped hearts in the Lone Star State. But she can still be arrested for trying to leave the state to terminate a pregnancy. Heck, anyone there who gives her a ride, whether they know she's pregnant or not, can be sued for wrongful death under Texas law. Does Kathy McMorris Rogers support that law? She says she's pro-life. A 10-year-old girl was raped in Ohio and had to flee the state with her mother to terminate that pregnancy. Does Kathy McMorris Rogers support that law? She says she's pro-life. The state of Louisiana and Alabama introduced legislation to charge women who have had abortions with premeditated murder. Does Kathy McMorris Rogers support that law? She says she's pro-life. Being raised a Catholic, I, like many of you, am uncomfortable with this topic. But I know it is wrong to force a couple who learns at 18 weeks gestation about a congenital anomaly incompatible with life to carry that pregnancy another 20 weeks just to watch in agony as their child gasps for a few breaths before dying in the delivery room. I also know there are some couples who would choose the path of not terminating the pregnancy early, and I 100% respect that choice also. I'm sorry, but I have to say this. Our democracy is under attack. As Rocky pointed out today, it is January 6th, and we all recall the horrible outcome of the insurrection. And as Michelle said, the Supreme Court ruled yesterday that women are second-class citizens who are not entitled to their own basic human dignity or the most basic medical care. The court ruled that Idaho make it a crime with a prison term of up to 5 years for anyone who performs or assists in an abortion. But neither the judges on the court nor the legislators in Idaho can define exactly what an abortion even is or what assist means. I also know that many women become pregnant against their wishes. This happens for many reasons, not the least of which is rape. Choosing when to become pregnant is a luxury that many women do not have. Because I wish no woman ever had to have an abortion, I am in favor of free birth control for all. Birth control prevents abortions, right? But there will still be times when loving couples who intentionally conceive will be faced with the unexpected news of an ectopic pregnancy, of fetal congenital abnormality, or like me, simply having their baby's heart stop beating. Until one is forced to work through the what-ifs of such a situation, I'm not sure any of us can say with confidence what we would choose to do. This decision is very personal and one that is between a patient, her healthcare provider, and her God. I'm Dr. Bernadine Bank. I'm running for Congress. I have dedicated my entire life to women's health, and I cannot stand by when women's very lives are being threatened by ham-handed politicians and a few religious radicals who treat women as little more than breeding stock. Many men have experienced significant emotional trauma watching the women in their lives go through heartbreaking decisions in pregnancy. These women are our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, and our wives, and I have a responsibility to them all. As a physician, as an obstetrician-gynecologist, as a woman, and as a human being. I must stand up for women's health. I must stand up for women's dignity. I must stand up for our families and for the people of Eastern Washington who deserve better. I'm asking you to raise your voice in support of my campaign. Thank you. I'm Dr. Bernadine Bank, and I approve this message.